Hey everybody, it's Angie and welcome to Hot and Flashy. In today's Foundation Friday for over 50s, I'm going to be taking an in-depth look at Shiseido Synchro Skin Long-Lasting Foundation. Now, I have been wearing this for about a week now, a few different days, trying it, applying with fingers, sponge, brush, primer, no primer, setting powder to really put it through its paces and see if it can work for more mature skin. This has been a frequently requested foundation for Foundation Friday, so thanks to everybody who requested this one. Keep those requests coming. I'm always interested in knowing what you guys are interested in seeing. This retails for $45 for 1 ounce and it comes in 13 shades. Now, the claims from the brand are that it is a smart, oil-free, long-lasting foundation that beautifully enhances your complexion, maintains skin's clarity while preventing shine, creasing, and fading all day long. It's flawlessly undetectable like it belongs to your skin. This innovative formula with medium buildable coverage and a modern matte natural finish feels uniquely airy and silky on the skin. So that's what they say about it. Let's put it to the Angie test and see if it really does live up to all those claims. So I checked out the ingredients in this. It has an SPF 20 that is a mix of chemical and mineral sunscreens. It also is a silicone and water blend. There are 8 silicones in here. It does contain SD alcohol, which is at the number 7 position. It also has mother of thyme extract and St. John's wort extract, and it also contains fragrance and talc. The container is a heavyweight frosted glass bottle, so you can see the color right through it, and it does have a pump. I have one little complaint about the packaging, and that is that the cap only fits on one way, so you've got a 50-50 shot of getting it on there right the first time. When I put this on and it looks like this, I'm like, ugh, I must fix, and then I spent 5 minutes fiddling with it to get it on there right. So anyway, just a small little thing personal to me. I don't know if it would drive you crazy or not, but it did drive me crazy, and it's not a long trip. So anyway, onto the actual foundation. What is contained in here is a nice liquidy foundation with a lightweight watery texture with a soft velvety feel. I gotta say, when I first pumped this out, I thought, oh wow, this feels almost exactly like my Holy Grail foundation, Chanel Perfection Lumiere Velvet. I was like, this could be a winner if it actually performs like this. Taking a look at the swatches, I did get a sample of this first in the shade Neutral 4, which was a little too dark and a little too orangey for me. Then when I went to purchase it, I went back and I picked it up in Neutral 3, which is the next shade lighter. Neither of them are really great for me, so I wish they had another shade in between. What I ended up doing today was mixing them together to get the right shade. So as I always do, I wore this a few different days this week. I tried it at baseline first just with my normal sunscreen and putting it on with my fingers, no primer, no setting powder, to see how it was just on its own. So let me bring in the day one footage. You can take a look and see how it applies with the fingers. We'll run through that. I come back for a 5-hour check-in and a 10-hour check-in each time that I use it and put it through a number of different tests. So you should get a pretty thorough vetting of this, so you'll be able to really see how it works under different conditions. Using the fingers, it feels so lovely going on. It glides over the skin. It feels really velvety or satiny, but even though it feels great, the application with the fingers wasn't really terrific. It was a little bit streaky and it was definitely a little bit uneven, so that there were heavier patches and other patches that it really wouldn't even cling to the skin. But once it was on, I thought it looked really great, with the exception that the color is of course a little bit dark for me. It did not settle into pores and it did not settle into wrinkles. I thought it had a slightly smoothing effect on the pores. The finish was matte but not flat. It's kind of like a demi-matte finish, so it reflects a little bit of light. It doesn't really have any streakiness to it. It's not settled into pores. It's not settled into wrinkles. It's pigmented with good coverage. So at the 5-hour check-in, I came back, looked in the mirror, and I was like, oh my God, you guys, it's gonna be the Holy Grail. I am so in love with this. I was absolutely gushing over it. It's wearing really great. It's not settled in pores and wrinkles. It's not really worn off at 5 hours. I think it looks really, really good. I feel like my skin looks smooth. I feel like my skin looks nice. This could be giving the Chanel Perfection Lumiere Velvet a run for its money. So over the course of the first 5 hours, it had gotten slightly shiny on my forehead, but not too bad where I felt like I had to blot it or where I felt like it was greasy looking. It looked much the same at 5 hours as when I had applied it. So it was very much not worn off. So at the 10-hour check-in, I felt like the color stayed true all day. It didn't oxidize, it didn't fade, it stayed the color that I put on, which was too dark for me. It was just a little bit worn off on my nose and chin, and it was a little bit shinier still than at 5 hours and a little bit more all over my face. But overall, I think it looked pretty good from a distance. Up close, it was starting to break apart a bit. It was comfortable and lightweight to wear all day, and it didn't feel drying at all. All right, so for day 2, I switched things up a little bit. I used a different sunscreen. I used my Laura Mercier foundation primer. To correct the color, I actually picked up a sample of the Clinique Blend It Yourself Pigment Drops in the lightest shade, put a drop or two of that in with the sample and mixed it up so that it much better matched my skin tone. Then I applied it using my Artist Oval 7 brush. With a brush, the foundation went on just great. There were no streaks, no smears. I applied one pump, which was a semi-sheer coverage. I was kind of in a rush because I was on my way to the hairdresser, so I didn't have time to really build it up on this day, so I left it fairly sheer. And again, it didn't settle into wrinkles, it didn't settle into pores. I loved how it looked. At the 5-hour check-in, it was shinier in my T-zone than the day before. Hello. I am enjoying the foundation again today, although it is a little shinier than it was before. You know, I didn't powder it today. I'm going to powder it now, just because we've already done the full day, just to see how it goes with some powder. Well, it is pretty worn off on my chin, though, I gotta say. All in all, though, I think it still looks good, and I'm very happy with it, and I like the color better today that I mixed it, but I still need to go back and buy it. All right, I was so busy that I blew past the 10-hour check-in, so I came back at 11 and a half hours to see how it was wearing, and it was pretty worn off. Because I had put on very, very light coverage to start with. It wears off in a way that didn't offend me. The addition of the powder definitely helped with the forehead to keep the shine down. And it wasn't worn off patchily or sliding around or kicking up dry flakes or clinging to dry patches. All right, so for the 3rd day, I figured I might as well go buy it since I was loving it so much. So I did pick it up in the new shade, which I showed you before, which is Neutral 3. I decided to switch it up and go for heavier coverage because I hadn't really tried to build it up yet. Apply it with a damp blending sponge over a chemical sunscreen. I actually used 2 different primers, so I just gave it a spritz with my Hard Candy Primer Mist. But then I did add my NYC Smooth Skin Primer down the center of my face and on the fronts of my cheeks. I applied 1.5 pumps with the sponge to build it up to fuller coverage. Then I set the T-zone with my IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores HD powder. So this is a foundation that does go on nicely with a damp blending sponge. I was able to build it up to get full coverage. At full coverage, I didn't really like how it looked as much. It looked like makeup, it looked a little cakey, it looked a little drier. It was accentuating the texture of my skin just a little bit more. At the 5-hour check-in, I thought it still looked good. It wasn't really worn off at all, so the primers were really helping it. And the powder had helped to keep the shine down, so it was still matte and not shiny. Then at the 10-hour check-in, it was just not good. I don't know if it was those primers or if it's just fuller coverage. It doesn't look as good. It was accentuating the texture. It was also sliding around all over the place. It had gathered like at the side of my nose. It was like striped on my forehead. So in addition to those 3 days of using it, I also used it another couple of days just to try a few different things. I did wear it one day with a Makeup Forever primer, a more expensive primer, just to see if it was like those 2 cheaper primers, and it had the same results. So it wasn't the cost of the primers. It still slid around. It didn't look good. It looked textury by the end of the day. So I was at that point thinking maybe it doesn't really work well with like a heavy-ish primer. So today I decided to use it on bare skin. So I put half face on with my fingers just on naked skin. The other half I gave it a spritz with the Urban Decay Quick Fix primer spritz, and I did this side with the brush. But we do have a couple more tests to do, so let's go ahead and do them. You know, I always like to do the phone test. The nice clean phone glass. Let's see what happens after I pretend to have a conversation. This was literally seconds. Oh, God, that is awful. And the last test is the flash photography test. It looks good. This foundation photographs well. It looks very nice on video. Let's bring in a little footage from daylight outside, and then we will wrap this one up. Welcome to the frozen north. Let's do the outdoor check on the makeup. I'm in the shade right now, so here is what it looks like in shady light. It blasted out with the sun and I couldn't get it back. So anyway, I'm inside now by a window to show you what it looks like in natural window light, since the outside didn't really work so well. So let me break down the pros and cons on this one to help you make a decision about if this is going to be the perfect foundation for you. On the pros side, is it easy to apply with fingers, sponge, or brush? And check, check, check. The answer is yes to all. Some are better than others, but you can make them all work. This has a lovely demi-matte finish that looks beautiful when you first apply it. It's very skin-like. If you apply less, it doesn't look cakey. It looks very natural. It didn't settle into wrinkles or pores, no matter what I put it over, no matter what I put it on with, no matter how long I wore it. It's fairly long wearing on its own. It looks great still at the 5-hour mark. Between 5 and 10 or 11 and a half hours, which is really long, it does tend to break down a little bit, start fading, start wearing off. It has a lightweight, comfortable feel. And the last pro on it is that it is non-drying. So this could be really great for people with skin on the drier side, which of course encompasses most mature women because, you know, once you've been through menopause, your skin is super dry. Where I still have the slightly oily T-zone, that's where it kind of falls off into a little bit of the con side. So if you do still have a little bit of oil in your skin and you're looking for something that's going to stay matte all day and have no oily breakthrough, then this is not for you. Definitely the oil comes through. It needs to either be set with a setting powder or blotted throughout the day in order to keep that nice demi-matte oil-free finish. This does have fragrance and SD alcohol, so if you have super sensitive skin, you might want to stay away from it from that standpoint. I didn't find that it worked really fantastically with many primers. With a primer, it did tend to slide around a little bit towards the end of the day. At full coverage, I don't enjoy this foundation at all. I felt like it looked cakey and obvious and like foundation, and that later in the day, it did really accentuate the texture on my skin. It didn't wear off as nicely as it did at sheerer, lighter coverage. Where I was originally thinking when I first used it that this was going to be the holy grail and it was going to be awesome, it turned out to be a little bit more of a mixed bag. I gotta say there are definitely more things on the pro side than on the con side, so it does put it up there in probably the category of best or really good foundations that I've tried. It is comparable from price, sunscreen, ingredients, feel, to my Chanel Perfection Lumiere Velvet. They're so similar, but yet this one is just so much better for me. It just looks better throughout the day. I don't get that really textury look on it at all ever. And for the same price, if you were going to get one or the other, I would get this one. I find the colors are the shades are a little bit more wearable, but if you tried this and you didn't really find a shade match for you, then definitely take a look at the Synchro Skin, because there could be a shade match for you where they have it in rose or golden or neutral. Maybe you'll find something in there. For me, this isn't a great shade match. I'm definitely in between 3 and 4, and that's another reason that, you know, the Chanel will still be #1 in my book. But very close, very good foundation, really happy with it, really glad that you guys suggested it. So that's my full review on the Shiseido Synchro Skin Lasting Liquid Foundation. It is pretty darn good, but not going at the top of the list. So let me know if you've tried this, what you think of it, if it's your holy grail or if it's more of a mixed bag for you as well. Have a great day, everybody, and I will see you in the next video. So take care. Bye-bye.